At Workday Physique, we help busy executives lose weight permanently through lifestyle modification and habit recalibration. If you work in a high performance role and you're struggling to keep up with your diet and exercise, and you're tired of losing and regaining the same weight over and over again, visit workdayphysique.com/coaching for a permanent solution. That is workdayphysique.com/coaching. This will change your life. I guarantee it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Workday Physique. I'm your host, Ajitesh Gogoi, and in today's episode, we're discussing about going through beginner's hell and if the process ever becomes easy. If you're just starting out on your weight loss journey, on your fitness journey, it would feel unnatural to adapt to a different way of eating, to become mindful of what you're putting into your body in terms of food, to adapt to a different way of moving your body, exercising regularly. All of these things may feel unnatural, difficult, and things that you're just not used to. And you may have this thought in your head that, is this ever going to become second nature for me? Am I ever going to get used to this way of life? The answer to that question is yes, you are. But I want to give you a realistic expectation in terms of the time frame it could take for this to become second nature for you. And understand this, that if you're feeling this way right now, that it feels too overwhelming, it feels too difficult, you're not alone. Anyone who is a beginner goes through beginner's hell. And the time frame that it takes for people to get used to this way of life varies widely depending on where you're starting from. Okay. So there is no specific answer really when you ask me, how long is this going to take? Because there are a lot of people who approach me for advice on getting in shape, and many of them have this question in their head that how long is this going to take for me to lose this much weight? Now, the truth is that you may be able to lose weight quite rapidly if you go through short-term methods and tricks like crash dieting, but those methods are really not sustainable. And if you're listening to this podcast, you might have had personal experience dealing with this on your own, where you have tried to lose weight, you've lost that weight, but regained it back again. And this cycle just keeps on happening over and over. It's because you have not addressed the root cause of the problem. You're just going for shortcuts, short-term solutions, which give you that short-term satisfaction of having lost a couple of kgs. But because you did not address the root cause, you're not able to sustain that long-term. And that's really pointless, because if you keep losing and regaining the same 5 to 10 kgs over and over for the rest of your life, I don't see how that won't be frustrating for anyone. So how long would it take for you to get used to this way of life? How long before this becomes second nature? And how long to get out of beginner's hell? A broad range, if I'm to give you, would be on average 2 to 3 years before it starts to feel like an integral part of your lifestyle. Now, I don't want you to get discouraged that, oh, this is too long, 2 to 3 years. Let me just go back to eating my pizza and, living my sedentary way of life, watching Netflix. I don't want you to go back to that, because that doesn't change anything. I know you don't want to stay in that space. But I just want to be honest to you upfront, so that before you hop on some kind of 8-week, 12-week transformation program, you should really consider if that's worth the investment, because most likely you won't sustain the results long term. Because like I said, it takes at least 2 to 3 years. 2 to 3 years of not just casually dabbling into the fitness thing, the weight loss thing as a side project, I would say, but really making it at least among your top 3 priorities. You should have it so that you can maintain the results long term. It has to be among your top 3 priorities for 2 to 3 years. Otherwise, it's not possible that You develop the systems and the habits that will let you sustain this long term. It's just not going to happen. It's going to take even longer if it's not a priority for you. Because it has not been a priority for you so far, that is why you are stuck in that constant cycle of losing and regaining weight over and over. Okay. So before you hop on some kind of short term transformation program, really consider if that is worth your time and money. And the reason people are not able to sustain the results they get from short term programs is because motivations to achieve the end result are often surface level. Like now, wedding season is coming up. There will be a lot of programs which will be selling wedding based weight loss. So, if you hop on a program like that, you'd lose some weight leading up to the wedding. But once that occasion is over, you no longer have any motivation to sustain the habits or the systems that you built um, during the period leading up to that event or that wedding. Or if you undergo a transformation for some kind of prize money at the end of the transformation challenge. So there are things like that as well. Once that challenge is over, once you win or don't win the transformation prize, you'll go back to your previous habits and you'll gain back that weight. So having surface level motivations, that um, is what causes these programs to fail. It is not learning the exercise and nutrition tools that takes time. It is not the information that is the bottleneck. It is usually the inner frameworks. So, the inner frameworks, motivations, belief systems that you have built up over the past decades for however long you have been alive on this planet. It is those things that take time to reframe because you have been conditioned from childhood. So you may have grown up in a family which encourages certain way of eating, um, which may or may not have encouraged athletic hobbies as a when you were a child. So when you have been brought up in that environment, your brain has formed these patterns over years to think of food and exercise in a certain way. So reversing those things, reframing your current worldview and perception of food and exercise, that is what takes time. It is not just, learning that you need to eat less, move more, eat these many carbs, eat these many grams of protein and fats. That is not the bottleneck here. It is fixing those inner frameworks that is the real challenge. So, fixing deeper problems, they take time. And unless and until you're able to do that, you will never be able to make this a natural way of thinking for yourself. So I'll give you a personal example. I have been through this beginner's hell phase myself when I was starting out back in 2010 2011. Back then, we did not even have the amount of resources that are easily available right now to anyone with an internet connection. The only things that were available back then were bodybuilding forums, okay, where people were just sharing their own personal experiences and talking and chatting in forums and figuring out solutions to whatever challenges they were facing. So it was a lot of trial and error, and most of the advice available in these forums were not evidence backed to say because it was just personal anecdotes from people. And you had to actually test these things out by yourself and see if those things actually works, which led to a lot of wasted time, at least in my case, because my nutrition was not point for a long period of time, for the longest period of time. I would say between 2010 to 2015, my nutrition was definitely not on point. So I made very little progress. I also got injured quite frequently during the past 1 to 2 years. During the first 1 to 2 years, not past 1 to 2 years. Um, and that was because I was just not aware of good exercise technique, how I should be training. There were too many contradictory viewpoints that I would come across online, and it just led to a lot of unnecessary wasted time. It is time for a short break. If you're a repeat listener, pause and take a screenshot of this episode wherever you're listening right now and share it with your friends on social media. It will take you 30 seconds, but it could change the life of another human being looking for this very information. Thank you in advance. I really appreciate it. And now back to the episode. But that is just the information aspect of things, which is kind of taken care of nowadays. If you just get to the most credible sources and you just stick to one or two credible sources, they will find the best information for you and feed you what you need. So you don't have to rely on forums where complete strangers are giving you advice. Okay. But if you're doing that, if you're just going to random strangers for advice, I would um, recommend against it. I would ask you to narrow your sources down to one or two credible ones. I hope Workday Physique is definitely one of them in case you're trying to lose weight. And you would have access to all the information you need, really. So, information is no longer a challenge anymore. But as a beginner, I also had to work on my core motivations. Like, what was I really trying to achieve? Because I knew for a fact that I did not want to be a bodybuilder or compete in bodybuilding events. That never really appealed to me in any way. I knew I did not want to be an athlete of any kind. So, what was I really trying to achieve? So, that took a bit of soul searching. And eventually, I figured out that it was because I am driven highly by the pursuit of personal growth. So, working on myself, on my physique, that provided a kind of outlet to achieve this personal growth and achieve a greater sense of confidence in working with my body. When I could figure that just by dialing in the input side of things in terms of nutrition and exercise, I could have 100% control over the outputs. That is how my body felt, how my body looked. That skill set transferred over to any other personal project that I was pursuing in other areas of my life. So that kind of control that I could exert on the outputs when it came to my projects on personal growth and development, it really was the core motivation for me. So a lot of people, they have this sense of lack of control, that I'm just the kind of person that I am. I was born unconfident. I don't have a good physique because my genetics are bad, or whatever else that might be going on in your head, that I know that a lot of people who are not in shape might be going through as a beginner. But I did not want that. I did not want my fate to be determined by uncontrollables. I was pretty sure that I could do this, I could fix this if I just figured out the right variables that I needed to fix. And working on my body, working on my nutrition and exercise proved to be the way to go about things. So that was really my core motivation. And that is what has been driving me, a pursuit of constant growth over the years. So earlier this year, I decided to pause my training, take a complete break from weight training, and my nutrition was barely on point because I figured that I had to focus on my resources on building Workday Physique as a brand, as a business, and it just could not be done if I was also focused on working on my body and taking care of my nutrition. I realized that it was just not, working for me. So I had to take a break from that side of things. So I lost quite a lot of muscle mass over the past 8 months, around 10 kgs, 20 pounds, I would say. But towards the end of October, I decided that, now things are more stable. I can get back into training. So it was just like a switch I had to turn back on in my head. And I've been consistent for the past 5 to 6 weeks, I would say, and I've gained back most of the muscle that I had lost over the past 8 months. And this did not take any kind of external motivation for me because I had worked enough over the years through my beginner's hell phase and through the years leading up to wherever I am currently, that I don't really need any kind of external force to stick to this lifestyle. I can turn it off, turn it on at will. But this is not possible for someone who is a beginner just starting away. All right. You already lack momentum when it comes to your exercise and nutrition. So if you just manage to lose some weight over a 8 week or 12 week program, if you pause for a while because you just want to take a break, you will not be able to resume that momentum by yourself again. It's not going to happen unless and until you have another challenge of that sort uh, coming up. So, my advice to you would be this, that you need to give yourself 2 to 3 years of serious determination and make your body a priority for these 2 to 3 years. That you'd have to deliberately put in effort to work on yourself and figure out along the way what your core motivations are. Because once you're able to do that, once you're able to solidify those inner frameworks, mindsets, and belief systems, it would not be difficult for you to keep that up as a lifestyle practice long term. But if you're not able to do that, if you don't give yourself that 2 to 3 years time, that you keep interrupting the process every couple of months, it is never going to happen. So you're always going to be stuck in that beginner's loop. So you'll never get out of that phase. So even if you're able to undergo a crazy transformation over the period of training on and off, over the period of 1 to 2 years training on and off, you would still go back to your previous body as soon as something comes up. All right. And you would not be able to get back to where you were. This is what usually happens to a lot of actors. You would see that they get into a role through rigorous training, rigorous nutrition, and they look great on screen. But then you see them after a couple of months, they're back to where they were, and they are never able to get back to that previous shape. This happens to a lot of actors unless and until another movie comes up where it demands that they look spectacular on screen without a shirt. So you don't want to be among those people. You want to have results that you can sustain for a lifetime. And in order for that to happen, you need to give yourself 2 to 3 years uninterrupted, 100% dedication where weight loss or fitness is among your top 3 priorities. If you're able to do this, I guarantee you that the pain you're currently experiencing from not being able to stick to a certain way of eating, not being able to show up at the gym consistently, not being able to stay active throughout the day, all these different challenges that you're currently facing, all of these will be a thing of the past. But you have to be willing to put in the work upfront. You have to be willing to work on those inner frameworks, belief systems, and core motivations. And you need to resist the temptations that come from looking at short term solutions that promise quick results, because there are no quick results. And any results that come quick, they go away just as quick. Just keep that in mind. That is it for this episode of Workday Physique. Thank you for listening. You can follow and subscribe to the show wherever you're listening right now so you don't miss out on future episodes. Leave a 5-star rating and review if you're a repeat listener, and share this episode with one friend who you think will find it helpful. I'll see you again very soon. Until then, stay tuned, stay safe, and stay consistent.